Stu, do you remember the mom in Rhode Island that just wanted to ask for the curriculum to see if CRT was in the curriculum, and the school was like, "No, it's too much. It's too much of a hassle." She's like, "Well, wait a minute. What do you mean it's too much of a hassle?" And they ended up saying, "Okay, if you want us to go through this, it's going to be $76,000."
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Totally fair amount.
Correct. And then they sued her to stop her intimidation. Now, yesterday, the FBI has announced that they're going to target parents for harassment and intimidation. The FBI is going to do this based on what happens at your local school board meetings. Wow. So I wanted to get her on the phone. Her name is Nicole Solas. And Nicole?
Yes, hi, Glenn.
I asked my staff this morning, I said, what is Nicole saying about this? And they said, well, she's responded in 2 words. And those 2 words are?
Arrest me.
Now, I've talked to you before. You're not some radical. This is out of the usual for you, right? You're not somebody that's always protesting and everything else.
No, I don't think I've ever done a protest. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to know what my kid was learning. And, 6 months later, I'm now being targeted by the FBI, and so is every other parent who has legitimate concerns about what their kids are learning in school. Garland is trying to frame this in terms of threats of violence by parents, and that has never been at the forefront of this fight opposing critical race theory indoctrination in school. Parents, are not intimidating school boards with threats of violence. We're not being violent. We're begging for open debate and civil discourse. And, just to really emphasize that no one tolerates violence. No one wants that. It should be noted that if there are any actual threats of violence by parents, that can be handled by local law enforcement because this is not a federal issue. What we're seeing here is an attempt to politicize federal law enforcement to stifle honest debate, and that should be vehemently opposed. We cannot let that stifle us because parents shouldn't have to worry about being federally investigated just because they're sharing legitimate concerns about what their children are learning.
Especially at a local level. I mean, you're standing in your local school district. That would require the local police. And if the police can't handle it, then it's kicked up to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General would turn it over to the state police. If there was a terroristic threat, it could be kicked up then to the FBI. This is crazy. This is making the FBI an agency, it seems to me, an agency or an arm of the unions.
Right. So, what we're seeing here is a much broader political perspective or narrative that's starting to weave. So parents care about their kids and their kids' education, but now we're seeing story after story of parents clashing with powerful political interests like school districts, politicians, unions, and those political interests, they care about their power, their money, and their political agenda. And they're going to pull out all the stops to hold on to that power. And that's why they're lashing out at parents when parents are questioning them and challenging their authority. So, we see Garland, right? Attorney Garland, he's gathering law enforcement at every level of society, letting everyone know that he's doing it. And that sends a political message of intimidation to parents around the country. And this fits in with the teacher union talking points, trying to demonize opposition, trying to cast everybody who doesn't go along with the critical race theory indoctrination and union agenda as terrorists, right? The National School Board Association comes out and says, now, parents like me are domestic terrorists. And, in the beginning of this, they were calling people like me fascists. Then they call you racist. Now we're terrorists. And it's like they're running out of magic words to call you.
Well,
and these accusations aren't enough. Right now, the FBI has to come after you.
Right. The terrorist one, as we have said for a million years now, it seems, the Patriot Act was the biggest mistake of all time, because all you have to do is change the definition of a terrorist. And they are labeling people now terrorists. That's why this has to be a terrorist activity in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. If it was, it's the worst terrorist act of all time. This with the parents, the only thing that would beat January 6th as a terrorist event would be the school board meetings in our local areas, because those are really crappy terrorists. They're not doing anything except talking. But that's why they're bringing that charge and labeling people now terrorists, because that has legal teeth in it. Patriot Act.
Yes, and and in Rhode Island, someone just sent me a response to an OMA complaint that was filed, where the school board called parents opposing critical race theory. They called them January 6th terrorists. They're any opposition they have, it's terrorists, it's insurrectionists. You can't even challenge them without them trying to destroy you. And the other really interesting thing is the Department of Justice and the FBI are concerned about, this, quote, terrorist activity by parents, only to a limited people. And those are people who disagree with the Biden agenda. Where are their task forces and multi-level law enforcement meetings to address, protesters who chase senators into bathrooms, or people who disrupt congressional hearings, or how about school boards who try to intimidate parents? So they are being very selective in who they label terrorists.
Any thought of moving to a rational state?
I actually do think about it every day. Florida is looking better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that is going to win this ideological war.
No, it's not.
That's really what's happening right now. What they're doing to parents now is consistent with the ideological purge in the military. This is now a complete weaponization of the federal government against ideological opponents. If you move to another state where they aren't targeting you this way, maybe you'll buy yourself some peace, some limited amount of time of peace, but who's to say that that's really the long-term answer for parents that don't want to run away from this fight? We want to win
it. How do you, I don't know, what line was crossed that makes you this individual? Because a lot of parents, they may be upset, but then they're not really vigilant like you are. And they're not willing to say, come arrest me. I mean, that's big words, and I believe you mean that.
I really don't know. I think that parents need to tap into the fighter in them. Everyone has a fighter in them when it comes to their kids. And I think some people are scared of fighting, at least as loudly as I am and as other parents I know are. But if I don't do this, I'm just sick to my stomach. I just can't exist in a world where the government is targeting and harassing me and I'm paying them to do it, because I'm setting up a world where then my children are going to be in that position with their own children. So I think we just need to keep a broader political perspective on what's happening, that yes, we're fighting for our kids and our education, but we're really fighting for a country that is not going to be oppressive for our children when they're grown up.
What do you say to the parents that have kids in school and their kids are saying, please, mom and dad, please don't do this. I'm going to get hammered in school?
You fight back every time they're hammered in school. No one is coming out of this unscathed. I can't make any promises that your kids aren't going to be affected, but I can promise that if you do nothing, and if you do nothing because, your kids they don't want to be affected by this. And of course, we don't want them affected by this. We want to shield them. But if you do nothing, it's going to be worse than if you did something. So we're not coming out of this unscathed. The worst thing you can do is nothing. The best thing you can do is protect your kids every step of that way. And every time you hear that your kid is being targeted, you respond to that too. Don't stick your head in the sand.
I really admire you. I think you are a great mom and a great American. And we'll continue to pray for you. And God bless. God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
You bet. There are very few people that are that brave. Nicole Solas, she is fighting for her children in Rhode Island. You can follow her on Twitter, Nicoletta 0602, or you can help her in her battle at goldwaterinstitute.org, goldwaterinstitute.org.